Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are revisiting 2023. So we've had 6 more months to basically catch up on whatever it was that we missed. We haven't played everything. There were thousands of games, but I think we played the stuff that we wanted to play. We've had a bit more time with stuff, and after the Golden Geek and the Spiel de Jahres, we were inspired to break it down into categories. So we're actually going to split it into the top 5 each of light, medium, and heavy.
And at first we just split it kind of how we felt like they would fall within those categories, but then we did check with BGG and it does match up pretty well with BGG ratings. But we've got 15 games to cover, so let's get right to it. Let's kick it off with light games, and at spot number 5 is Rafter 5, which is a very silly light dexterity game. You have a bunch of little guys that are on your raft, which is just these oink boxes that are stacked. And then you have to take a plank from the ocean and add it on top with the little guy on top. And then you take a treasure chest token and you add that to your plank. And that is it. But as all of the planks get wider, it causes more and more potential danger anytime you're picking up or putting things down. And anytime other treasure chest tokens fall into the ocean, you have to add them to yours. So this is a game where there is one loser and everyone else are winners.
And this is just such a fun game. This is one of those ones where you're at a convention and you're playing it and like people start to notice and there's like an energy around when it finally all falls and everyone's like, oh, it's got that kind of Rhino hero thing going where you're playing competitively and then it almost becomes cooperative, although this less so. This is more cutthroat and it's adorable. Everyone we played it with has liked it, and that is our number 5. At number 4 is Mycelia, and Mycelia was a bit of a surprise to us. We didn't even have our eye out for this one. We ended up playing it, we really liked it. And so this is a game where you've got a little kind of garden and you got mushroom people and you're trying to move dewdrops into a portal and as an offering to the forest gods, you know, one of those games. And so it's a really light deck builder, really quick deck builder. Just the components are terrific. It's got this terrific thing where you're putting your dewdrops that you like spin around and they fall out. And all it is admin, but it's like the funnest admin that you can do. And I appreciate that in a game. And so this one really surprised us.
Yeah, that centerpiece is just fantastic. And it's so simple. If you want to introduce deck building to somebody, I think this is a great game to do it. But even as experienced gamers, there is something just charming about the lightness and the speed at which you play. But it also is interesting enough as a puzzle as you're moving your dewdrops that we were pleasantly surprised. And it is our number 4. Our number 3 is Sky Team, and Sky Team is a 2-player only cooperative game, and you are a pilot and co-pilot trying to land your plane safely. And how you do this is you aren't allowed to speak to each other. You each have your own dice and you have to place your dice one at a time to make sure like the plane stays level, you're moving forward the right amount. So it requires a lot of like cooperation as you do so, but I think it really nails a 2-player co-op experience really well.
Yeah, and this one, it surprises me we still haven't bought this. We play this all the time on BGA. We've got this out of libraries when we're at places, so we've played it. We've played the physical copy a few times. We've played BGA a whole ton of times. And I really like it, and we keep meaning to buy it, and we just keep not quite picking it up, but we will at some point. And yeah, just a super fun game that at first you're like, oh, I feel like there's not going to be that much more to this. But then you play more and more levels and they add in other stuff and it gets real hard, real fast. And it is quite a challenge. And it is our number 3. At number 2 is Knarr, and I feel like this one has kind of flown under the radar a little bit, and hopefully more people notice this one because it is terrific. This is this Viking themed game. It's from Bombix, who have done a bunch of really nice set collection games in the last few years. This is actually one of 2 of last year because Eloa almost made this list as well. But Knarr is, it's super, super quick, super speedy card game where you're doing a few different things. You've got Vikings, you're adding them to these sets, but you're also spending them so that you can get these islands, and you kind of have to do both. And you've got like this little mini engine, but it's got this thing that I really like in games with that you're building up the combos, but then you have to tear apart. I like when you've got to make that choice of how far do I keep building before I tear it all apart to get this other thing that's going to help me build in a different way. And yeah, this one we have played a ton. We've introduced to a lot of people. Just a really clever, quick game.
Yeah, and it's a race to 40 points, and those 40 points come along quickly. You can definitely get caught spending too long building your engine without getting your points. So sometimes you really just want to get those quick points. But it's really colorful as well, and I do feel like there are enough different paths to victories, because we have tried different strategies, and they all seem to work. But like you say, it's the balance of what you do when you do based on the cards you have, and it is our number 2. Our number 1 is Far Away, and this is, I think, our most recent purchase, but also probably our most played game of this list. We have played this a ton. It is a really simple card game where you are drafting cards and you're putting it out in your tableau. But the tricky thing is it scores backwards. So you have to flip all of your cards down, and then you start at the very last card, flip it up, and score for what you can see. So just that mind puzzle of trying to like figure out if you've got the right things by the time it's revealed takes a few games to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and this is another one where there's just a ton of different paths to victory. And we just talked about this one in another video, so I won't belabor it, but it is so, so clever. And that flipping over backwards to score, it's weird like how much that like messes with your brain for those first few games that you do it. But just an unbelievably clever game. We were playing this all the time. Really like it, and that is why it is number 1. Let's move on to medium weight games, and at number 5 is Apiary. And Apiary is a worker placement game where you are bees in space, and you're doing regular space bee stuff. So you're gaining little chunks for your hive, you're flying around space getting your different bee resources that you need to do your different hive things, and you're getting these cards that are upgrades and kind of the stuff you would expect in a worker placement game, but it does a really good job of intertwining a bunch of different mechanics, but in a way that's like super light, super accessible, and just really quick. And it's one that we will kind of pull out at any time because it's kind of like a cozy, comfy worker placement game, and I can really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think something that plays into the comfort of it is it's not mean because it has a bumping mechanic. So if you want to go to a worker placement spot that somebody else is, you bump their worker, and that means they'll like progress or they'll come back as a higher level, which is often something that works in their favor because you get a bonus if they get to the highest level because then they hibernate. So I really like that worker placement aspect of it not being like pure competition, of being like, ooh, that's going to benefit them. Do I want to go there? It's a bit friendlier as well, and it makes it our number 5. Our number 4 is Earth, which is an action selection and tableau building game. And you're building your tableau of different flora cards. And how you're doing this is through action selection. And there are 4 different actions that you can pick. But the interesting thing is anytime you pick an action, you get to do the stronger version, but everybody else still gets to do a version of that. It's usually just a little bit weaker. And it activates everybody's cards that have that same color. So I really like that you're always involved every turn. And there'll be times when I'm just like really hoping that you pick a certain action that will really benefit me.
Yeah, it's a really cool game, and it's cool how all of the cards in your tableau too interact differently because you've got these different goals, so you're trying to put them out in different kinds of arrangements, and you've got like animals that you want to bring into your thing through kind of like an abstract form of these other goals. You've got like 7 different goals, I think, that you're trying to do between everything, and so you're never going to be able to do all of them. But there's a race to some of those too, and there's just other scoring going on in your tableau, and with the expansion as well, I think that added a bunch too to some of the stuff that was lacking. Just a really cool game, and Yeah, this is one of those ones that's kind of become a gateway game that a lot of people get into, and I can definitely see why. And that is our number 4. Our number 3 is Distilled, and this is the newest one to us that is on this part of the list. And this one really surprised me because I hadn't played it at first because I'm not that into the subject matter. I'm not a big drinker. I wasn't sure about it, but this one really caught me. And this was one of those games that the first time we played, I just wanted to play it again right away. Like Jess made us go to bed and she was like, no, it's too late already. And we played it, I think, the next morning. But it's a really clever, kind of different deck builder. And what you're doing is you're making it's kind of a very small little deck of cards each turn. Usually it's like 6, 8-ish cards. But then it's got this clever thing that ties into the theme and the mechanics. And I love when that happens, where you take the top card and the bottom card off of that little deck. And that's meant to be part of the distillation process where you take the top and the bottom off of the whatever it is that you're making. And then you make the different kinds of alcohol. And it's just such a clever thing, and the game, it's pretty light, it's pretty quick, but it feels like there's kind of like a sneaky depth to it, and it's definitely one of those ones that you want to play again. And because it's like, oh, we're already done? Well, I think I can do more. I want to do that again next time. So this one has been a real hit with me.
Yeah, and there are different drink cards that have different types of drinks involved. So sometimes you're making drinks quickly, sometimes you're aging them. You might also be doing a lot of bottle collecting, or you can be upgrading your factory. So there's a lot more variability here than I first thought. And this is our number 3. Our number 2 is Forest Shuffle, which is a nature-themed tableau game. So you're drafting trees and different types of flora and fauna, and you are trying to build out these little ecosystems. And these ecosystems are all based around the trees. And so the cards tuck so neatly, kind of above and around it. And you're trying to find these combinations. So you might be trying to get a whole bunch of wolves, in which case you're also going to want a lot of deer. Maybe you're trying to collect a butterfly set and get all the different types of butterflies, or go big on birds and get a whole bunch of birds. I feel like every game we play, it's almost like a new strategy comes to light of like, oh, this could be really strong.
Yeah, and often too, you're mixing a few of those together as well, because I think at first everyone's like, oh, just got lots of trees. You'll win if you get lots of trees. And I don't think that that's true, because there's definitely like some of the animal combinations, especially when you've got the, is it the amphibians or the whatever, it's like that little salamander sign. Yeah. Those seem super strong to me. But I think you could talk to 12 different people and you get 12 different things that they think are broken in this game. And I think that's kind of like, that speaks a lot to this game. It's so cool, it looks so pretty. And that is our number 2. And our number 1 medium weight game is White Castle. And this won't be a surprise. If you watched our earlier list, this was our number 1 overall of last year. I'm not sure that that's changed either. It's just such a clever game. And this is a game where you've only got 9 actions in the whole game, which is so few, but there are so many different ways to use those actions to combo to different actions. It's dice selection games. You're taking a dice off a bridge, putting that onto an action space, and then you're doing something. But usually that something is going to link to another something, which maybe links to another something. And it is amazing how much you get done in 9 actions. It's very crunchy. This is one of those ones where we were like, is this middle? Is this heavy? I do think it is a mid-weight game. It's pretty easy to get into. It's just doing the actual turns and getting better at it is what's hard. And I think that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah, this is so tight. And I feel like that people can be really good at this to a level that we aren't yet, because there's a score token that we've been in no danger of flipping.
Yeah.
So I do feel like one can get way, way better, but it can feel so rewarding to pull off those big combos, because everything else is so tight and you have so few turns, that satisfaction of when you can do a lot does feel really good. And this makes it our number 1. And on to our last category, which is heavy games. Our number 5 is Darwin's Journey. And this is also a recent pickup for us, which is surprising because I have a zoology background, so I know all about Darwin. And there seems to be a lot of Darwin games coming out recently. But in Darwin's Journey, it is a really heavy, tightly managed worker placement game. And you are doing what Darwin did on his epic journey. So you're trying to sail a boat, you're going around on foot collecting species, you're adding those species to the museum, and your workers are getting a little bit better at things by collecting these seals. But I really like the engine you're building. I feel like at the beginning everything feels really tight, but then by the end you feel like you can achieve so much more, and I really like that progression.
For me, I definitely do feel like at the beginning it's really tight, and then by the end it's really tight. This is an incredibly tight game. Every now and then I've got like a turn where I'm like, I got so much money, no problem. And then one turn later, I'm like, where did all that money go? Why am I so broke again? Because anytime you go somewhere where other people are, especially in a 2-player game, you got to spend $3. You start this game with $4. Most things give you like $2. So $3 to just go on an action space is a lot of money. And everything in this game feels like that, where it's so tight. It's definitely one you're gonna get better at. You're gonna figure out how the different things interact. And there's a lot of cool things to interact, a lot of cool paths. But oh boy, is it tight. And we are newer at this one. It is a cool one, which is why it is number 5. Our number 4 is Nucleum, and this is back-to-back Simone Luciani and Friends games. And this one, like the last one, is also super tight, but it's really interesting. This is a very different kind of train game. It reminds me a little bit of Brass, and that's because it's a little bit inspired by Brass. I think David Turksey said that in interviews, but it's got this really cool action selection mechanic where you've got these different kind of chunks of trains, and you can use these to do actions, or you can use these to actually be your tracks. But if you put them down on the board, you lost that action. Now you've got to go find a way to buy that action again and have access to that action. And that's really cool. There's a few games that do this sort of thing where you're giving away your action in order to do stuff, like Space Station Phoenix does it pretty well as well. I think this one does it even better. And it's, again, so tight, but really, a really cool, interesting game, and how you're actually building the trains, really, really cool.
Yeah, it is interesting that you can give up your actions to build your track, because you do really have to do that. You're trying to build your network, you're trying to connect to all of these uranium plants, so being able to expand but keep the stronger actions while you do so is a really tough decision. So this can feel really brain burnery, but definitely pays off with all of the interconnectedness of all the parts. And it is our number 4. Our number 3 is Septima, and in Septima you are witches and you're trying to help out all of these sick villagers. They keep getting ill, but the villagers hate witches, so you're trying to do this, making sure they're not getting suspicious of you and trying to avoid like these witch hunters as well. And how you're doing this is action selection through card play. So you're going around collecting ingredients, curing patients, trying to like influence the witch trials that are going on. So a whole bunch of like interconnected systems, but I think just the theme itself is what really won me over.
And this is a Mind Clash game, so I'm not surprised that I like it, because I do tend to like their games, but the theme is so cool. I love that you're trying to heal these jerks, and they're such jerks, because all you want to do is help them. And like how you're influencing the trial, and there are a lot of different little bits going on. It's not as heavy as some of their different games. It's not as heavy as I would say like Anachrony or Tricarian or Voidfall. So it's a little less brain burnery, but it still has plenty to think about. And that theme and like the artwork and everything else is just awesome. One thing I would say though is play with all the stuff right from the start. It's got like an easy mode and then a like full mode. Just start with a full mode. It's such a better game with the full mode. But that is our number 3. Our number 2 is Hegemony, and I love Hegemony. It's so different from everything else that's out there. This is a game about socioeconomics, which I know sounds super fun, but you take on these different roles of being capitalists or working class or the state but this really altruistic state. And you kind of, it's like symbiotic. You're kind of working together because you need jobs if you're the working class, and you need to pay people if you're the capitalist, but you don't want to because you're greedy capitalists, but you kind of have to, and then you're voting on things. It's pretty heavy at first, but once you get into it, you're really just playing a card each turn and doing fairly simple actions. There's also a lot of doing taxes, and that part takes up a lot of time, but it's surprisingly interesting. But it's just so different. It's such like an experience of a game.
Yeah, it is incredibly asymmetric, and that is the huge draw. It feels so different depending on who you are. And so it's been great to try all of the different factions. And then I feel like it takes a long time to really get good in the factions.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So if you wanted to get good at each of the factions, that is like a whack-load of games to play.
A full whack load.
An official whack-load of games. And all of that makes Hegemony our number 2. Our number 1 is Voidfall, which is a space 4X game. So you're building your fleet of ships and you're exploring space and you're fighting other ships, but you're doing all of this through Euro mechanics. So you play a card and you pick 2 of the 3 actions on your card that you choose to do. And some of those actions include things like combat, but combat is all deterministic. There are no dice involved. So you know ahead of time whether you're going to win or lose, and you're just trying to time it best for when you choose to do it.
Yeah, that is what makes this game so interesting to me, because I really want to get more into 4X games, but I'm not that into dice. And this does for me to 4X what Gloomhaven did for dungeon crawlers, where Gloomhaven really, it's just all about the cards. There's no dice at all, but you're fighting, and there is still some randomness in that. This is even better. There's even less randomness, which I love. And there's a lot of planning, but oh boy, there is still such a puzzle in this game, that choosing what card you're going to get and then which 2 actions and how those are going to work together. Sometimes you got to pay one with stuff for the other, so you got to figure out. There's just so much to figure out. Like, I don't care how not AP you are, this game's going to make you a little bit AP, but in a really good way. And it just has so much in that box with all of those different asymmetric factions, and they all play differently.
Yeah, and so many different maps as well. So you can start like really far from the other players or be really close together. And there's also a whole cooperative mode. And so that is playing the same game, but it's not tacked on. It's fully like integrated. So tons of different ways to play this too. Yeah,
there's so much in this box, and every time you play, it's like it definitely takes a while, but it feels like an event to play this game, and I love games that offer that. And so this is our number 1. And that is it. That is 2023 Revisited. And we tried to fill in some of those blanks, but I'm positive that there's still stuff that you know that we missed. And so please let us know about that. Stuff like the Unmatched expansion. We wish we could have fit that in there. It's terrific, but we just couldn't find space for it.
But thank you so much for watching. Please, as usual, like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.